Thank you very much to all our experts on previous session. We invite all of our panelists to come up and have a seat, please. And we will start in-house like we did yesterday. We will start at the mics. If there are no questions in-house, we will go and take as many as we can from the online repository that we have. All right, which one came first? Okay. On the far side, please. Question in-house.
Yes, hi. My question is for Dr. Bai. When you were presenting GDUSA BE, I think that was terrific. It's great, and it's going to provide a uniform approach. My question is, how closely integrated is that with the current PSGs as they were formed over, to say, the past 20, 25 years? And is the data that is going to be taken from the GSD, from that system database, is it actually integrated with how those were formed today and in the past 15 years? So my concern would be that the threshold of burden to obtain approval for an ANDA is higher than the threshold that the NDA had from 10 or 15 years ago. So is that true, or is there a mechanism in place to make sure that that doesn't happen?
So first, thank you for the question, and I'm very proud that you can pronounce GDUSA BE right. And second, I'm trying to understand what you're trying to alluding to. So I think you're referring to the legacy data.
Yeah. So if you have legacy data, right?
Right.
That was used to form the PSG, presumably, right? How is the current data in the system? Are we using new data from the literature to form PSGs, modern day PSGs, that might not have been needed by the NDA holder themselves? For example, IVPT testing was not something performed earlier by the NDA holders, right? So now it's a requirement, right? Which is fine, it makes sense, right? But how much of that is going to be newer data, right? Sometimes the NDA holder, if the NDA holder did not have to perform some of those tests and have some of that data, because you can see this by reviewing the SBOAs, that the data did not exist in some cases, right? So, and they might be discontinued, right? So there's no way to even get their product to determine what, if it's similar. So unless you use the, obviously use the RS, the current RS. But are there data, is there data that's needed today that was not, didn't exist before? So in other words, you're going to need to get approval, you're going to have to meet the PSG requirements, but the NDA holder themselves did not meet those requirements. So in other words, the threshold is higher now for the generic to get approval.
I wouldn't say the threshold is higher. By the way, my answer probably is not going to be fully addressing your question, because GDUSA or GDUSA BE is actually a generic drug structure assessment tool for bioequivalence reviewers. And for PSG that you're alluding to, that's another office, right, ORS. And currently, ORS is not using GDUSA system for their PSG development yet. But you're right, and we are trying to incorporate some of the legacy data in our GDUSA BE system to inform our bioequivalence assessors to make informed decision. But that data is based on the bioequivalence assessments in the past years, right? Like the deficiency language that I was alluding to in my talk, and also any critical decision-making process during the past year's bioequivalence assessments. Of course, for those discussions, ORS or PSG development offices, they are also involved in those discussions too. So I wouldn't specifically address, how this GDUSA BE tool will help, ORS offices in terms of the PSG development, because that's a future state if there is. I hope that answers some level of your questions. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Again, I'm so proud that you can pronounce GDUSA BE tool right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question here, please.
Yeah, this question is for Ang on the pediatric excipient levels. Is the agency going to provide us a resource to know what are the acceptable levels for pediatric use for the excipients, like providing an additional column in the IAD database?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I think, as I mentioned in my slides, at this very moment, there's no extra column in the IAD specifically designed for the levels approved for different age groups in pediatric population. I cannot give you like a conclusion or a foreseen date that when this data will be, or if it will be added to the IAD at all. But I can only say at this very moment, if there's any question or proposal or concern about the safety for a specific excipient used in the test formulation, then the applicant is more than welcome to send a control correspondence to confirm with the agency before the ANDA was submitted. So that's my question, my answer to your question. Hopefully it helps a little.
Okay, thank you. So can I ask?
Let's go to online, please. Online?
First question for either Tao or Yang. Is excipient level critical in the drug approval process?
Are you saying if excipient level is critical for ANDA approval?
Is excipient level critical in the drug approval process?
So, Tao can probably chime in later, but to me, the acceptability of a proposed excipient level, it is a critical aspect during our ANDA review. So the excipient level, as I said, it needs to be demonstrated to not affecting the efficacy or the safety of the test product or generic product comparing to the RLD. So yes, I would say that is a critical aspect in our ANDA review. And Tao, if you can.
Sure, I would say everything that we require you to submit is critical. If you have any additional questions, then please go ahead.
Yeah. This question is to Tao only. It's great to know about the Gadesha B tool. Is this going to affect us the way we are submitting the data in future on the BE data?
Sorry, say that again. It will.
So is there any effect on us the way we are presenting the data, bioequivalence data in the application? This Gadesha B tool is going to affect us on the way we present the data to the division.
Right, you get that. You get that point, and only mentioned once in one of my slides. Really, that is the structured data submission, right, from the ANDA applicants. You're right. In the future, we are planning to have structured data submission, but right now it is currently under development for the requirements. So more details will be released later.
Like we are presenting currently, structured product labeling now. So labeling is a structured one already now.
Exactly. GDF is the generic drug structure assessment for the entire generic drug program, and labeling is actually the first stage. And BE is the second stage. You're going to hear more and more programs, releases in Gadesha BE, in Gadesha, there'll be safety, filing, later on in future days. So you're right, labeling is already in structured stage. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to the far mic, please.
Good morning, all. My question was...
You need to stand close up, please, so we can hear you. Also, the people online.
Yeah. Good morning, all. My question was similar to previous questionnaire for Speaker Tao regarding the Gadesha labeling. So I'm gonna switch my question to Speaker Yang for history. So we saw that all of the innovations and discoveries happened only after the tragedies, like innovations followed by the tragedies, being it thalidomide tragedy, being it Tylenol tragedy, and everything. So do you think FDA is providing any preventive measures at the back end to streamline or cut the future tragedies to be happened?
So this is a little bit history talk. So about the example, the tragedy, the 1937 tragedy I was talking about in my presentation, I was not in the right position. I believe I'm not in the right position to judge what is the best approach. I can only say, as you can see, the tragedy occurs in the autumn in 1937, and the law was passed in 1938. So only after 1 year, at that time, I don't think it's the Congress actually made a very, very fast move. Actually, after the incident was firstly reported, thousands of inspectors were sent across the country to collect data, to visit patients, to visit victims, and try to gather as much information as possible to do that. So I would say this is very, very unfortunate. As you mentioned, there are actually more than one tragedy in the history of drug development, but I can only say anything that we see that either in the laws or in the guidances, it is a little bit later or a little bit delayed comparing to what if, God forbid, what anything bad could happen. So we can only do either call that a corrective action or a preventive action after something bad happened. But I think the one thing that I do want to point out is, a quick action is always needed, especially for bigger issues like what you mentioned and what I had in my slide. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I will only say anything that either the FDA or the Congress pass as a law to prevent something bad or something similar bad happen is always a little bit delayed. It cannot prevent any bad thing to happen in the future because we don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, I think that's my point of view.
Thank you for your answer.
So if I could add a little bit, I just want to say GDSA BE could be the tool, right? Yeah. Now with GDSA BE, we are able to make more consistent, informed decisions. So that could really help us prevent any future tragedy to happen.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, as I understood the relation between the BE and labeling from Speaker Shabnam's presentation, I had the similar question for that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go online, please.
Question for Yang. Does FDA have plans to add pediatric information to the IID? If yes, what time frame? And if an applicant can't find strong supporting information from the public domain, can they submit controlled correspondence to OGD for input?
Yeah, thank you for the online question. I think that's very similar to the question I addressed before, but let me just reiterate what I think is true. At this moment, there's no a specific timeline for adding additional pediatric IEG safety data into the IED. There might be additional data in the future, but unfortunately, I cannot give, and I'm not in the right position to give a clear timeline. But in that question, that's right on the spot. If there's any question or any new proposal from the applicant side, always a good idea is to confirm with the agency through a control correspondent. There's one thing I didn't say in my previous addressing the question, similar question is because just be considerate that the response time for a controlled correspondence is usually kind of fast turnaround. So it would be very helpful for we reviewers to review the safety acceptability for excipient if there's additional data, literature including, to be submitted alongside with the control correspondent. That will kind of speed up or expedite the review cycle for control correspondence for this kind of question.
Thank you. Let's go to the mic right here in front of me, please.
Thank you. Hello, and thank you for all the presentations. My question is for Dr. Dancy. For an extractable impurity that has been detected above the AET, but has been identified and evaluated as safe, for example, it's well above or below the PDE at the amount detected, can the agency please confirm or clarify if that extractable still needs to be included in a leachable study?
Yes, any extractable above the AET needs to be identified, quantified, for us to determine whether or not it needs further evaluation, right? And we have these safety thresholds on top of the AET to determine whether or not it's potentially mutagenic or there's any other general toxicity.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. At the mic at the far end, please. Step up closer, please.
Yes. Good morning, and thank you all for your presentations. Very informative. This is probably for Dr. Dancy, but whoever would like to answer, feel free. So if there's a general category for an excipient, I'm going to use the example of microcrystalline cellulose, but there's also specific ones for given grades, like 102 or 202. Can the applicant justify using the general category in the IID if it has a higher limit for the, with all the other things, that it's the right route of administration, all of those things? Specifically, can we provide that justification? Do we need to do a CC? Where here, like the grade differences are related to particle size and bulk density, but not related to something else.
Yeah, so I'll reiterate that if there's any question regarding the excipient, like a control correspondence, as you know, my colleagues have mentioned, it's a great approach. And then when it comes to your question, I mean, normally we're a consult-based division, right? So normally like OB will do their initial assessment, and then if there's any question, you know, if the excipient cannot be justified based on the IID or approved products, then they'll consult us regarding that specific grade, and we'll conduct our evaluation. And I also mentioned that during excipients, we do use a bridging approach a lot of the time. But again, that's once it comes to us, we do have to conduct that general evaluation on the that specific grade. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Online question, please.
Great. Question for Shabnam. How do we perform comparative analyses when the RLD is discontinued or unavailable?
Hi, thank you for your question. Indeed, when the RLD is unavailable or discontinued, we recommend that you reach out to us. And there are two venues to do that. There is a venue of controlled correspondences, and there's also the venue of FOIA. If they, for instance, the RLD is so old that is hard to find, but we definitely recommend that you reach out to us and find a solution, because the generic has to be compared to its RLD. Thank you.
Thank you. In-house, first year.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the bio-IND procedural related question. So we understand that once a bio-IND is submitted, agency has up to 30 days to respond if there are any clinical hold comments. But once an applicant responds to the clinical hold comments, how long does agency take to clear the protocol? I mean, is it 30 days again, or is it longer?
I don't think that 30-day hold is there for the clinical hold. I think that 30 days is for the initial response. We try to expedite it as much as we can.
Yeah, I think the guidance for INDs basically indicates that response to the clinical hold comments are also responded within 30-day time frame. But for bio-IND, it's not very clear.
Sorry, can you say that one more time?
For the INDs that we submit for the NDAs and all, the guidance states that even response to the clinical holds are responded within 30 days. But for bio-IND, like, there's no such clarity.
I would have to verify that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Go ahead.
This is for Dr. Dancy. A very helpful presentation on the extractable impurity limits and the other parts that you covered. So you mentioned that for impurity limits, proprietary data for RLD cannot be like referenced to justify the limits. But if the applicant carries the analysis and generates data with the RLD samples, would that still be considered proprietary information?
I think that would be considered a comparative impurity analysis, right? So that would not fall, I don't think, under proprietary data, as long as the comparative impurity analysis is conducted using validated methods. And for that, we normally collaborate with OPQ to determine whether or not the comparative impurity analysis is adequate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Question at the far mic, please.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. And this question is more to Dr. Liu, but maybe a little bit with Dr. Dancy also. So it's very informative about that the excipients level is addressed to different populations, especially pediatric. But there are cases during like generic development or that even to submission stage that the ROD have not like fully complete their assessment around pediatric, or that it's further extended by like new indication. Like when will this evaluation extend to a different population be triggered? Like when there is a potential, or effectively when that ROD have this indication, and or that will this may result in generic having a different population or indication than the ROD on labeling?
So let me make sure I get the question. You're saying if a generic drug referencing an ROD and the ROD label has not covered, for example, pediatric patient yet, but it may be expanded to that population, what should be evaluated during the generic? Is that
Exactly.
Okay, so that's more relating to the drug label revising, or apparently additional data will be needed. So I would say if what the current labeling, the current RANG labeling is specified that the drug is not indicated to pediatric patients when the ANDA is submitted, then at least at this, I think at the OGD, the current practice, if the current drug labeling does not specify pediatric use, we will not concern about the safety in pediatric. But if there's any evidence or any record showing the NDA drug or the innovator drug is actually considering to be given to a pediatric patient down the road in the future, and we will take that into consider as well in our ANDA review. But to your question, we pretty much stay with the current RODA label.
And just to clarify, is there any case that any chance that it will result in different population, like maybe that the ROD will have this extension to pediatric, but the generic do not have?
First of all, I would kind of ask you a question. How it was hypothesized that an ROD will be given to pediatric patients if the current ROD label doesn't say so. So as a generic drug company, that's actually really my question. Is the generic drug is trying to be pretty much exactly the same as the ROD product, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the key important information, or the most important information, will be gathered or specified in the current ROD label. Mm-hmm. So what triggers that we have the concern that this drug will be, like 5 years later, will be used in pediatric patient? That's so the same thing for regulators, for reviewers. We do the same thing. At this very moment, when we're reviewing it, and we just follow what the ROD label is talking about, especially for like the target population. I can hopefully this answer a little, but maybe others can chime in.
Perhaps we can go to an online question, and you guys are here, and maybe you can get to the speakers for a lengthier explanation during the break. Okay?
Thank you.
Online question, please.
Question for Andrea. A BE study that was previously submitted under a bio-IND needs to be performed again with minor changes to the study protocol. Do I need to submit a bio-IND amendment?
Yeah, if you are going to change, if you are going to make changes to the protocol for that study, then a bio-IND amendment does need to be submitted.
Thank you. Mike, closer to me, please.
Yeah, so thank you. I don't have a question, but I'm Partha Roy, the Office Director for the Office of Bioequivalence. I just wanted to address the question which gentleman has regarding the PSG and the Gadesa BE. I think there is no difference between what we are doing today and when we are using the Gadesa. It's just a tool to make it, the review quicker. Also, accessing a lot of the databases that we have. We are trying to build the system so that we can get to those databases quickly. But the PSG, the information that comes, and that's a regular process, which is coming from our research or coming from NDA coming from all of the ANDAs that we are reviewing. So there is no change in that process. It's just we are trying to do it much faster, more optimized, and hopefully, ultimately our responses will be more standardized. You find less consistent, more consistent. And also, we're trying to, probably prevent the next tragedy. The data security is a very important aspect for the agency. The agency, people around the world are trying to get to the agency information in the database. So this is another opportunity to put it in the cloud system and have the, the greater security of our data. So that's one of the reasons also we are going into more of the structured review and all that. So, but we can, I don't want to take too much time. But
no, next time you have an answer, put your hand up. Don't come to the line.
All right, okay.
I'll give you a mic. Thank you very much, Dr. Roy. Mike at the far end, please.
So this is for the tablet dosage form where RLD has been discontinued and it does not have any scoring on that. But can generic work to have a scoring on the generic tablet? What could be the bio perspective or how FDA take this change? Should I come again? This is related to bio perspective mostly. So there is a RLD which has been discontinued and it does not have any scoring. So as a generic applicant, can they do scoring on the generic tablet? And how FDA take this change?
I can attempt to answer that from a clinical perspective. So if you're proposing a scoring that was not available in the RLD, we're going to go back and evaluate it based on the label of the RLD. So from a clinical perspective, the allowance of that scoring will be based on that. And if, for example, as you score it, if the scores still you can apply the same labeling for the end users to take it, and if that's applicable to that or not. From a bioequivalence perspective, I guess you guys can comment.
Okay, thank you. No more answers from the panel for this one, right?
I would just quickly chime in, just my personal perspective. If the RLD, no matter is discontinued or is still on the market, if it's not scored, then the generic drug, it wants to put the score on the tablet, then needs to consider whether there has been any tested, when the RLD was being approved or being tested or approved or reviewed, is there any concern about keeping the tablet, for example, keeping it intact? Or can that be split or crushed? So that also is a consideration. I mean, it's a more complex question, not just simply say, hey, there's already no reference there, so we can do what we think is the best way to manufacture the generic. I think there's more thinking behind that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's take one question from online, then we'll finish up these two here. We're running a little late, so let's take one from online.
Question for Jimena. How to challenge the feedback received from FDA if a sponsor found it not appropriate? Or how would you challenge?
Can you repeat the question,
Sure.
please? To whom was it addressed?
To Jimena. How would you challenge the feedback received from FDA if a sponsor found it not appropriate?
I mean, I guess it would depend on the or what the deficiency was. But if there's any clarification questions, I guess my first thought would be submit a control correspondence. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Microphone in front of me, please.
Hi, my question is related to GDF. What's the timeline of its implementation? Are you implementing to a part of the review right now? What stage it is, and is it going to be depending on the type of ANDA submissions? Like, is it implemented all across right now?
So first of all, Gadesa BE is the assessment tool for the bioequivalence assessors, right? I have alluded to a little bit about the structured data submission in the future. Right now, it's currently under consideration. Detailed requirements will come up. So right now, the scope for Gadesa BE, like I said, only about 60 ANDAs have reviewed by Gadesa BE system. So we are taking the approach from oral solid dosage form and to expand to other dosage forms. Right now, we're only focusing on certain study designs. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last question at the far end, please.
Yeah, thanks. Back to pediatric excipients again, and feeding into the previous question and the question from the panel. So the way a generic manufacturer knows that an NDA is going to be pursuing or have to pursue approval in a pediatric population is because of their PMRs. That's all posted on FDA's letters. So when you see in an FDA letter that they have post-marketing requirements for multiple PED assessments, one can imagine that in the not too distant future, they're very likely to be approved in the pediatric population. So I think part of the question, it was a question I shared as well. If somebody submits an ANDA now and the RLD is labeled only for use in an adult population, and we get an ANDA that's approved based on an excipient level, but later on, it ends up being labeled for use in pediatric populations, and all of a sudden an approved application has an excipient that has some sort of pediatric issue, what's the agency's position on that? You would certainly be applying a standard of pediatric excipient evaluation to any pending or future approvals. What would you do for a consistency standpoint with approvals that have already taken place?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the clarification and the follow-up. I think that's a very, very good point, first of all. And also, I think whenever that scenario happened and the drug actually, the PSG, not the PSG, the RLD will be expanded for pediatric use. If that's the case, I think for a generic drug which has been approved, referencing that particular RLD, also needs to have, additional evaluation. For example, the revising of the labeling and everything. I think during that process, at this moment, personally, I have not encountered with this kind of review yet, but that's a very good point, and we can definitely have further discussion back in the office. But I think during that phase, when the approved generic drug also needs to submit like a post-approval revision of the generic labeling, in that phrase, when it considers the use in pediatric patients specifically, additional evaluation within the office will be conducted, and there will be a close communication with the applicant. I think that's the current thinking, at least from my personal perspective. But again, I have not encountered into that scenario at this moment. Thank you. That's a great point.